Oh, yeah. Let's get into it. Let's do it here on the YouTube. DeMeco Ryans is around the corner. As the caption says, homecoming is imminent for DeMeco Ryans. And what a fantastic situation this is for the Houston Texans. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's get to your comments. Plenty of stuff to get into tonight. How awesome is this, Texans fans? I mean, how awesome is this that we are talking about DeMeco Ryans ending up as the head coach of the Houston Texans? Now, nothing's official yet, but it might as well be as official as it can be without actually being official. Man, this is so much fun to go through this entire process, to go through the coaching search and come out with DeMeco Ryans. Wow. What a great job by the Houston Texans to come out with the top coordinator candidate on the market. Okay? That's what DeMeco Ryans is. DeMeco Ryans is the top coordinator candidate on the market when it comes to this hiring cycle. The top candidate, most people's eyes, was Sean Payton. Sean Payton seemingly is not going to take any of these jobs that are available. He might circle back to Denver, but DeMeco Ryans was the top candidate. He was the top first-time head coach, and DeMeco Ryans circled the Houston Texans and decided that's where he wants to be, okay? He turned down interviews with the Carolina Panthers. He canceled interviews with the Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals. It was between the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans, and DeMeco Ryans picked Houston. DeMeco Ryans picked the Texans. The organization that has the most losses the past 3 seasons in the National Football League. The organization that people believed wouldn't be able to hire a good coach because they'd fired 2 one-and-done coaches. The organization that people believed was not the top choice of coaching candidates this offseason turned out to be the top choice for coaching candidates this season, and it turned out to be the top choice for the top coordinator candidate in DeMeco Ryans. Man, that feels good to say as a Texans fan. It's so rare to have an off-season win for the Houston Texans. It's so rare, so often, so frequently. We get off-season losses for the Houston Texans. You think back to the conversations when Bill O'Brien was in power and we didn't really exactly know what was going on with the power structure. Hell, this organization randomly fired a general manager out of nowhere a couple of years ago. Then Bill O'Brien took over, but nobody would say Bill O'Brien was in charge. He and the preacher ran the organization. Then Kansas City happens. And from 24-0 on the precipice of hosting the AFC Championship game at NRG Stadium against the hated Tennessee Titans, Bill O'Brien and company blow it in that game. The organization doesn't do anything in the offseason to Bill O'Brien. In fact, he gets more power. He gets officially named the guy in charge of the Houston Texans. And it made me want to smash my head against a wall. And then Bill O'Brien's fired. Deshaun Watson wants out. That's another off-season L. You hired David Culley after a crappy coaching search. Off-season L. It takes you a week to fire David Culley. Off-season L. It ends up with Lovie Smith because the organization gets sued and gets scared off from hiring the candidate that they want. Guess what that was? Off-season L. Man, this organization has regularly taken off-season losses year after year after year. To be sitting here on a Monday night having some late night YouTube fun with everybody and talk about an off-season win that this team rarely has is so much fun. It is so much fun. How pumped are you? Get it in the comments, man. Get it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Let's have some discussions. We got a lot of things we want to get to tonight. We're going to talk more about DeMeco, him picking the Houston Texans. DeMeco and Nick Caserio, DeMeco's potential staff. We'll have lots of time to break down a lot of that stuff. Let's get to some of your comments. Hefe, appreciate you tuning in. Jose, appreciate you. Sean, Good evening to you, Brandon. Let them know. Stereotypes over. Didn't get a no from nobody. Man, Brandon brings up a great point, man. I think that's one of the best parts of this entire coaching search. The Texans talked to all 8 candidates they wanted to talk to. Nobody else was able to go all the way with all their candidates. Nobody else was able to get a yes from every hopeful interview. The Texans went 8 for 8. Ben Johnson went back to the Lions. They could have hired any of those other guys, and they got the top coordinator, the top guy. And oh, by the way, that guy told the hated Indianapolis Colts no. That guy told the Arizona Cardinals no on an interview. That guy told the Panthers no on an interview, and he talked to the Denver Broncos. He talked to the Broncos, and he said, yeah, this ain't for me. Houston's where I want to be. Man, Brandon, that's a great point. No thank yous from anybody. Everybody else had a no thank you in this cycle when it came to getting an interview. Jim, appreciate you tuning in. Max, appreciate you getting in here. Oh, Tim, language. I guess it's not language. I guess it's written word here. Oh, hey, man, there's plenty of folks over at ESPN that have watched about 5 Texans games in the past 5 years. Look, I talked about this on the show today, which, by the way, you can listen to me on the Wheelhouse, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 FM here in Houston, the ESPN 97.5 app, and, of course, ESPN975.com, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday on the Wheelhouse. We talked about this on the show today. You know how many times the Houston Texans have shown up on national media's radar over the past couple of years? When Deshaun Watson plays a national game and did something cool, when they fired O'Brien, when they fired Culley, when Deshaun wanted a trade, they don't pay attention to the Texans. They don't get down and dirty with it. There's probably national media out there that don't know they got picked 2 and 12. There's probably national media out there that don't know they got 2 first-round picks next year, not to mention the rest of the picks from the Cleveland Browns. We're here every day watching this team, paying attention to this team. We're here. We knew this was a big-time opportunity. Look, if you wanted to have a discussion about the Carolina Panthers being a better opportunity, if you wanted to have a discussion about the Broncos being better because they were more stable from a quarterback-built defense standpoint, they had more proven commodities, I'd listen to you. I'd have that conversation. I said from the beginning, the blank slate that the Houston Texans put together right now for a coach, the blank slate that you would have to imprint your way of doing things for this organization was the most attractive opening. And when the top candidate picks you, it's hard to be wrong about that. Caleb mentioned it. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. I'm all jacked up on Dr. Pepper Cherry Zero Sugar. And not quite Mountain Dew, but it'll get you going just the same. It's an offseason win, and this is a big win for the Texans. This is one, if you remember a few weeks ago, that people didn't believe was going to happen. And if you believe that, okay, and Aaron Wilson's a good friend of mine. I respect Aaron's work ethic. I respect what Aaron puts together. I did not believe there'd be zero interest from DeMeco Ryans. I did not believe that DeMeco Ryans would totally say no to the Houston Texans. I also believed once they got DeMeco Ryans in the room and he had a conversation with Cal McNair and Hannah McNair and Nick Caserio, I believed he would entertain the Houston Texans job, and I believed he would pick the Houston Texans job if he had multiple offers. Okay, so even if Aaron was correct that initially DeMeco Ryans had no interest, then add a bigger W to the offseason win because you convinced the guy that had no interest. I mean, fellas, when you chase a lady and she's not interested, and then finally she gives you the time of day, and next thing you know, you're dating, well, doesn't that feel good? Ladies, you know the same thing when a fella finally gives you the time of day. If you're in sales, which is most of life is sales, if you're in sales and you chase that one client and they won't give you the time of day, they never bought a damn thing from you, and they finally let you in the showroom, they finally let you in the big boss's office, the decision maker's office, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Not only do I want to buy something from you, I want to buy a lot of stuff from you. That's what the Texans did with DeMeco Ryans. He had options. And after talking with the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos, he decided those were his 2 best options. He weighed between those 2 and ended up as the Houston Texans head coach. Man, that feels really good. It has to feel so good as a Texans fan to have that pop up this offseason. Put a W on the scoreboard, finally. Hefe, as Landry likes to say, the person of service, Jack Easterby, isn't here. Now the organization's only going up from here. Look, a lot of the mess got cleaned up, okay? A lot of the mess that this organization had has been cleaned up. You think about the mess that Nick Caserio walked into. A super underachieving, over-leveraged in the salary cap football team who, as soon as Nick Caserio got the job, didn't have a quarterback because that quarterback didn't want to play anymore. Had a preacher running important things in the organization, making people uncomfortable, not good at his job, and no first or second round draft pick. That's what Nick Caserio walked into. Now, these years later, your regular draft picks were returning. You were going to have contracts fall off the books, but Caserio, with some interesting navigation of the salary cap, has cleaned up a lot of the dead money after those first 2 years. And I'm with him. 2-year increments, it looked like they weren't going anywhere in these first 2 years. It looked like they achieved probably close to what they were capable of achieving these first 2 years, especially when Deshaun Watson wanted out. So Caserio has cleaned up a lot of the crap that was happening with this organization. Deshaun Watson's out of here. Jack Easterby's out of here. The Texans have some validity to them. They have some relevancy to them. 8 for 8 on interview requests. They talked to everybody. They got everybody that they wanted on a Zoom for a meeting at the very least. They've got salary cap space, and they're going to have more on the way when Caserio starts taking care of some of this roster and figuring out the Laramie Tunsil situation. They've got draft picks out the wazoo. Double-digit draft picks this year, man. Including 2 in the top 12. And I believe 5 in the top 73. I'm going to double-check exactly my order on that, but I believe 5 in the top 74. But it'll actually be the first 73 players because Miami forfeited one. The Texans cleaned themselves up over a couple of years. It was 2 really tough years. Don't get me wrong. Those sucked. And I probably would prefer Deshaun Watson have not been an alleged sexual pervert, and you could have traded him right away, and you could have hit the ground running with one of those quarterbacks in that very first year. But you're in a situation now that is much better than if you were able to have traded Deshaun in that first offseason and draft one of those quarterbacks, because it turns out where you would have been picking likely, the Trey Lance is on, those guys haven't been amazing. Bryce Young, Justin Fields, those are 2 really interesting candidates here for you for the quarterback spot. So not only do you have the draft picks, not only do you have the salary cap situation fixed, you got a piece here or there that's worthy of writing home about, worthy of talking about, and you have a clear avenue to a quarterback. The Colts have a murky avenue to a quarterback. The Panthers have a murky avenue to a quarterback. Nobody knows what Arizona's going to do for a year, why Kyler Murray is down with the injury. You have a clear path to the quarterback. The Texans made a very ugly mess of the organization for a couple of years. They deserved the criticism. They deserved people being out on this organization, people being uninvested, worrying about when there would be hope again. The Texans also realized that and have done work to clean up their own mess here over the past couple of seasons. And they made themselves an attractive job. They made themselves an interesting job, and they went out there and got the top coordinator candidate on the market. So, yes, this is still a crew that had you in a nasty situation as an organization. But they clearly have demonstrated an ability to clean up their own mess and change the outlook, change the relevancy of the Houston Texans. They've done a very good job. Very good job. Brandon, we thought it might be Pat versus Watson. It might be Pat versus Young. The media keeps searching for competition for Mahomes. Hey, it's going to be Pat versus Joey Burrow for a couple years. It feels like Burrow, man. Woo! Burrow is really good. Mahomes is the best, man. That's because he went to a great university, Texas Tech University, like yours truly. It's not really why he's good. He's good. He's good independent of the Texas Tech stuff. Dave says, hey, Cody, my prediction for the Houston Texans, DeMeco as the head coach will make the playoffs next season. Whoa, Dave. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's not think too highly of DeMeco just yet. There's some challenges to DeMeco. We'll talk about some of the stuff he's got to take care of. There's some unknowns to DeMeco Ryans. But here's what you can know about DeMeco Ryans. Here's what you can think about with DeMeco as the head coach of the Houston Texans. There's a runway. There's hope. There's a level that you can see him getting to that is really good football. Did you see a future with David Culley? Did you see a future with Lovie Smith? If you did, it was short. If you saw a positive to David Culley being here, you didn't see a 5, 6, 7-year reign of dominance in the AFC South with David Culley. You didn't see that with Lovie Smith. Even if you believed, and I maybe foolishly believed Lovie might have something in that first year, even if you believed Lovie was the guy, you didn't see it happening for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. This is what DeMeco is about, man. This is what DeMeco Ryans and the hiring of DeMeco Ryans is all about. It's about building something that will last. It is about building the next great team in the National Football League. It's about pairing a head coach who has oozing qualities that you desire in a head coach, oozing, and pairing him with a quarterback and hoping that in 5, 6, 7 years, you're one of the longest tenured head coach quarterback combos in football. That's what this offseason is about. It was about getting the head coach, him putting together a team around him, and everybody going and getting that quarterback and starting to build something. If you've heard me say this once, you've heard me say it 100 times. The 5 of the 6 longest tenured head coaches in the National Football League are defensive coaches, guys with defensive backgrounds. Bill Belichick had Tom Brady. John Harbaugh had Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. Pete Carroll had Russell Wilson. These guys are tenured and long-tenured coaches because they have paired themselves with really good quarterbacks. And those really good quarterbacks are the difference maker between guys that are pretty good head coaches and great head coaches. Mike Vrabel is a really, really good head coach. Heck, he's even been great on occasion when Tannehill plays really well. If you gave Mike Vrabel a much better quarterback, Vrabel's for sure a great head coach, and we say it every year. He might still be that even without the quarterback. That's the hope for DeMeco. The quarterback's going to take time to grow into his spot. DeMeco's going to take time to grow in as the head coach. But my goodness, man, my goodness, it's going to be great when they finally do grow up. It's going to be great when they finally do get going and put it together and combine a fantastic head coach candidate and a hopeful star quarterback. And you put all those other pieces around them, man, it's going to be great. And you have this excitement because you were able to shop at the top and hire from the top. Not only did the Texans go to the expensive part of the store and look at the very nice stuff that they wanted to buy, they got it. They were able to convince DeMeco Ryans to take this job. They were attractive enough, and man, it feels good. Let's get to some of your comments, then we'll get to some of the stuff ahead for DeMeco Ryans and why this is so fun and so unique. Dean asks, is Peyton no longer an option? If DeMeco is the new head coach, who do you think will be his OC and DC? We'll get to staffing stuff here in just a little bit. Sean Payton is no longer an option. I believe DeMeco is going to get hired as early as tomorrow. The announcement may come. The press conference will be later in the week. And then DeMeco Ryans will hit the ground running as the head coach of this organization. I believe once Sean Payton told his buddy Colin Cowherd what happened with the Texans on Zoom, and Cowherd went on national radio and ran the Texans down, I believe there's no chance Sean Payton was getting hired. I don't know if Sean Payton wanted a job this year. I mean, he certainly flirted with a lot of people, but he certainly hasn't found himself with a opportunity just yet. Nobody with a second interview for Sean Payton just yet. Now, I don't know if that's all Payton. I don't know if that's all the teams. Andre says, thanks for the chat. Andre, thank you for the chat. Thank everybody for being in here, man. We got over 100 people in here. We're having some fun. We'll get to some comments here, and we'll get to all this great stuff. George, all this hype feels good, but in the back of my mind, I'm waiting for a dysfunctional Texans-type move. That's a valid concern here, George. I understand why George would say something like this. Hell, I've had the thought myself. And the reason that I can't be all the way there excited until pen is on paper is it is the Houston Texans. That's starting to change. That's starting to change. They are changing the perception of this organization. It didn't get ruined in a night. Before 2020, this organization had never had back-to-back super disappointing seasons. This organization had never been in a situation where they had really atrocious back-to-back seasons. And then they rattled off 3 in a row, and that kind of sucked. And that led you to this dark place, and a lot of it was self-inflicted. So when a guy like George says, hey, man, dysfunctional Texans is still in the back of my mind, I get it. I get it. The actions of this organization this offseason have showed you they have identified exactly what they need to improve on. They have tried to hire someone to help them improve on that, which is DeMeco Ryans, and they're going to make sure that they do the best thing that they can. Hiring one of the top candidates was the best thing they could do to start the offseason. That's what they've done. That's what they've done. Look, I can tell you it's a little bit different in NRG Stadium, and these small actions of interviewing the right candidates can tell you that they're on the right track. It will be up to wins and losses to see if they're on the right track. This is an organization that was regularly going to the playoffs and in playoff contention a few years ago. Get back to that. You want to show that you're not SOT? Same old Texans? Get back to that, man. Get back to regularly and frequently competing and being in the playoffs. Now, here's the best part about that. That doesn't have to be 2023. Hell, that doesn't even have to be 2024. If you're putting in a good base, if you're getting people excited, if it looks like you know what you're doing, and you're doing some things that are building over those couple of years, you don't have to be competing for the playoffs. If you're building one of these things that in 2025 is going to be a monster, or you can see signs of it in 2024, man, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. Brandon, Wheelhouse is better than Frank Dukes. Put him up. Old school sports radio before Fred and AJ. Man, I appreciate the kind words, Brandon. Dukes and AJ and Fred and all those cats that came before us, man, we appreciate what they brought to the table. We have some fun there on the Wheelhouse. Jim, Stutz, I love you. Jim, I love you too for tuning in today. Love everybody for tuning in, man. We're going to have some fun. Head coach DeMeco Ryans, offense coordinator Matt Schaub. I don't know about that. Matt Schaub not really in the coaching situation right now. I don't know about all that. Stutz a big zero sugar diet soda guy. You're damn straight I am. All right. The cherry zero sugar is pretty good. It's really red. So you get your tongue red a little bit. My favorite's Cherry Coke Zero. That's my favorite. Diet Mountain Dew is probably my second favorite. Not Mountain Dew Zero. Diet Mountain Dew. Diet Mountain Dew is probably my second favorite. You go to restaurants, they don't have like the fancy stuff, so you just get Coke Zero. I like Coke Zero better than Diet Coke. People get worried about aspartame. I mean, ain't nothing to be worried about. Science doesn't have a ton of stuff that says, oh, it's going to kill you. I mean, I ain't worried about it. All right, lots of questions that we're going to get to here. And we'll get to some more stuff about the staff and all that kind of stuff. Oh, my God, at the comments. I need someone to handle these comments for me to start firing through some of these. Brandon, Budweiser for me, boys. Sit down. That Bud Light. Hey, OG stuff certainly ain't bad. Adam, all these one-score L's this past season had a QB wide receiver, Miko. The future is bright. Hey, this team is far away from being consistently successful. But, man, just being competitive every week is going to go a long way. So you think we'll wake up to Ian Rappaport announcing that it's official? Man, I don't know what time you wake up. I hope to be up before Rappaport starts the Twitter fingers tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. Jeremy, why would these coaches want to come to the house that Eastery built? It's human nature to want to be part of the success that he showed. Peace be upon thee, bro. Easterby. Yeah. Jack Easterby wasn't luring anybody here except for maybe Josh McCown. And we know how that one would not have worked out near as good as this DeMeco thing is going to work out. That's another thing, too. The 2 years that suck, The black hole of suck that this organization turned into, to end up with DeMeco when you almost ended up with Josh McCown. I mean, it's all, I don't want to say it's worth it, but damn, it feels pretty close. Feels pretty close to work with it. JJ posted the pick on Twitter also. He's really dealing the deal with that. Did they ask Nick first? All right, let's get into that Nick Caserio thing. We'll get to some more comments as well. Man, you guys are flying through the comments. I'm going to do the best I can to get to some of these. How will DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio get along? How will they get along together? This is one of the important things that you need to pay attention to with this Texans job. This is one of those important things that is fun to think about in putting together this coaching search and ultimately ending up with DeMeco Ryans. Because DeMeco didn't have to take this job if he didn't like Nick Caserio. And Nick Caserio didn't have to really sign off on DeMeco Ryans if he didn't believe it. I don't want to sit here and act like Nick Caserio doesn't have some say in the organization. He absolutely does. He absolutely has some say in the organization. And he should. He's the damn general manager. He's going to help pick the players, negotiate the contracts, and things like that. He should have some say. But it's in the best interest of the Houston Texans. It's in the best interest of Nick Caserio. And it's in the best interest of DeMeco Ryans for these two sides to get along. It's in the best interest of these two sides to really have a relationship that works and continues to work. That is something that is beneficial for everybody. Nick Caserio is one of the 5 highest paid general managers, if you believe the rumors. He doesn't want to screw this up. He doesn't want to get fired. He doesn't want to be seen as one of those New England failure guys. And from DeMeco Ryans' standpoint, Nick Caserio is a part of the reason he picks this job. A defensive coordinator may not get a second bite of the apple as a head coach. It is so rare to get these young defensive guys a second opportunity and a second chance. DeMeco's not going to screw that up if he doesn't believe in Nick Caserio. DeMeco's not going to screw that up if he doesn't believe Nick Caserio can work with him. Now, what I will say is Nick Caserio, if he stands in the way of progress over the next 2 years, he's the next big firing. He's the guy that the organization will move on from. It won't be DeMeco Ryans. I do not believe for a second these two are tied at the hip. I do not believe that if Caserio goes, DeMeco goes, or DeMeco goes, Caserio goes. The next time someone of significance is fired from the Texans, it's general manager Nick Caserio, not DeMeco Ryans. But that's only if it doesn't work. If it works, if there's success, if they get along, if they win football games, there's nothing to worry about. I don't believe Nick Caserio wants to be the face of this franchise anymore. I think him being the face of the franchise for the past couple of years was by the product of Jack Easterby wanted it to be that way because he likes Nick. And who else could you turn to? It wasn't David Culley. It wasn't Lovie Smith. Who else could you turn to kind of be the face of the franchise? It was Nick Caserio. That's who you would turn to. That's who was the guy that had to talk about this team, get people excited about this team. And so now you heard his comments a few weeks ago. They were looking for a superstar. They were looking for an absolute rock star at the head coach spot to take over as the face of this franchise for the next couple of years and to take over as the mouthpiece for this franchise and to get people excited about this franchise. That's what they were looking for in the head coach. There were a lot of options that could have done that. Peyton could have done that. DeMeco's obviously going to be charged with doing that. There were a lot of coaches that could have done that. That was one of the things that I believe they had to have in this coach because Caserio didn't want that. That's not how Caserio is going to maximize his value to this team, being the face, talking a lot about this team, outwardly speaking about this team. That's all DeMeco's job now. That's all DeMeco Ryans' job now. And DeMeco shares the burden until he gets a quarterback. DeMeco carries the burden until he gets a quarterback to share that burden with. Then that guy is the guy that carries the burden of being the face of the franchise. He and DeMeco will be tied together, and for better or worse, the Houston Texans will survive on the merits of the quarterback that they draft this year and DeMeco Ryans. And they'll be tied at the hip. That's how they get it done. And those will be the face of the franchise. Nick Caserio will be free to scout. Nick Caserio will be free to help DeMeco Ryans however DeMeco Ryans needs him to be helped or needs Caserio to help him. and it will be a relationship. I do very much believe Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans are going to get along together. And I would be surprised, very surprised, if that doesn't end up being the case. All right, this is a conversation, so you guys participate in the comments section. A lot to get to. Let's get into it. Gridiron Takeover. Brian Johnson as the OC. If you don't know who Brian Johnson is, that is the Eagles quarterbacks coach. Brian is going to be in high demand. Brian Johnson is probably most well known for his role in Kyle Trask's time at Florida. Johnson was the quarterbacks coach at Florida and then the offensive coordinator in 2020 when Kyle Trask went banana, okay, and almost got himself into the Heisman Trophy conversation. Okay, Trask was phenomenal that year at Florida, and then from Florida, he went to be the quarterbacks coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been a part of the Jalen Hurts situation the past couple of years. Okay, so it's a really interesting name. Oh, by the way, familiar with the city of Houston because he coached at UH. He went to high school in Baytown. All right. This is a guy that's from this neck of the woods, not too far from here, and it's a really intriguing candidate. He's going to be a hot commodity. I don't know if you can get Brian Johnson. That's certainly a name that I would pay attention to. Maserati Swift with the emojis. I love it. I just got into the emojis about a year ago. I probably use them too much now. People give me the eye roll emoji all the time. The lead. DeMeco Ryans immediately resets the direction of the franchise, excites the fan base. Touchdown Texans. Yeah, he does. Most of these coaches would have excited the fan base. Look, I know Jonathan Gannon is not DeMeco Ryans. I'd have been excited with Gannon, not as excited as DeMeco. I'd have been excited with Kafka, not as excited as DeMeco. Here's that perfect storm that I wanted to talk about. It is so rare to have somebody so deeply involved in the fabric and the history of your franchise take over in this spot. Think about these various head coaches and where they come from and where they end up and how they end up in those jobs. It's so rare to have someone so deeply involved in the fabric and history of the franchise get this opportunity. Like you think about Andy Reid. Andy Reid has no connection to the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid doesn't have a Kansas City Chiefs connection. Now Andy Reid took over the Chiefs job, and he's been fantastic. This is something that happens in college a lot. And even then, the people aren't to the same level that DeMeco is with the Texans. Like Jim Harbaugh ends up at Michigan. It's a great example of somebody super familiar with the football program that takes over. The football program takes it to new heights. Kirby Smart played football at Georgia. And then Kirby Smart takes over as the head coach at Georgia once he's ready, and they're a monster. They're a powerhouse. Now, it doesn't always work. My alma mater had the same thing happen. Cliff Kingsbury is one of the best quarterbacks to ever walk around Lubbock, Texas. He came in there as a head coach. It didn't work. But to have DeMeco Ryans be so familiar with the depth and the fabric of this organization, what makes it tick, and the important parts of it, and its connection to this city, and to have him now come in as an extremely qualified candidate. This guy is not the coach because he was a Texans linebacker. This guy is the coach because he was one of, if not the best candidate for the job, because he's smart, because he knows how to lead men, because he has a resume that was worth betting on, because he has people that will go to bat for him and talk glowingly about his potential as a coach. He's not the coach because he played linebacker for the Texans and went to the Pro Bowl and won a Rookie of the Year award. That's not why he's the coach. That's a huge bonus to him being the coach, but that is not why DeMeco Ryans is the coach of the Houston Texans. It's a great bonus to DeMeco Ryans being the coach of the Houston Texans. Jim, our division sucks and our schedule isn't that hard if we get a QB, so wild card maybe. Hey, Jim, I love it. Dream no little dreams, man. You want the Texans to be in the playoff spots, in the playoff hunt next year? Dream no little dream. I'll tell you this. I'll worry about expectations for this team as we see the offseason play out. Expectations, stuff like this, like wild card year 2 for sure. Expectations for this team will become easier to decide once you see how free agency plays out, once you see how the draft plays out. Okay, expectations for this team are easier to see once you see free agency and the draft play out. I think the Texans can make the playoffs. They hit on free agency and draft picks. Trey, yeah, you're probably not wrong. You're probably not wrong. DeMeco's only 38. He'll stay around longer than Gary did because of that. He brings that H-Town vibe, kind of like Kubiak did. Brandon brings up a good point. We talked about this on the Wheelhouse today, and I think this is a really important point. DeMeco Ryans getting hired as the Houston Texans head coach is one of the 5 best moments in franchise history. It's one of the moments that gives you the most hope and excitement in franchise history. The franchise being assembled, okay, is one of those 5 moments. Bob McNair getting the franchise, getting it to Houston, that's one of those 5 moments. The most recent moment that gave you a lot of hope and that the Texans did that right was trading up for Deshaun Watson, not having a franchise quarterback those first few years of Bill O'Brien, and then Rick Smith forcing his way into the franchise quarterback conversation with the addition of Deshaun Watson. That's one of the last times the Texans got it right. Now, there's a retroactive got it right to J.J. Watt, but this fan base was split when J.J. got drafted. I remember all of us Texans fans split on this. J.J. Watt or Nick Fairley or one of these other guys. Nick Fairley, the defensive tackle from Auburn. That's who I wanted. I'm not afraid to admit it, okay? But that's one of the few times this franchise has got it right. And Gary Kubiak is another moment in the got it right situation. He came in after turning down jobs in Denver as a highly touted shop at the top candidate. He had other opportunities. He picked you. He was familiar to Texans fans, even though he hadn't been in the organization. He's a Houston guy, high school here, college at Texas A&M. And if you were a football fan, you'd heard of Gary Kubiak before. You felt good about Gary Kubiak. He talks like us. He dropped a y'all and aw shucks, and he sounded country sometimes, man. They followed that up with Bill O'Brien. It was hard to get excited for O'Brien. Didn't have the same vibes as Gary Kubiak. Didn't have that warmth that the head coach kind of needs. The way you coach stuff in the North, the way you coach stuff in the South is different. The way you interact with these fan bases, man, it's different. It's different. I want one of those tight ends. Free agency or the draft? Good question. Unless the Texans had a Seahawks level draft, Jaguars like free agency, maybe the Texans create 7, maybe 8 wins. Again, expectations, look, we'll all have different ones. We'll all find ourselves with kind of different expectations. Here's what I like to do with the expectations. Kind of think about it and then wait for free agency and the draft to play out, and then find yourself with the schedule announcement. Kind of think about it then. Think about how many times you go in with a head coach advantage, how many times you go in with a quarterback advantage, how many times, you're playing on a short week or they're coming off a long rest, stuff like that. The expectations are going to change a bunch before this season gets started, man. Before this season gets started. Does DeMeco bring JJ on as a DC? I'd be shocked if JJ Watt's a coach in any way, shape, or form for this team. Max, do you think Mills is a backup since he's still on a rookie deal? I'm thinking Caserio keep him on the books because he drafted him. Maybe. I'd like to have somebody in there to show Bryce Young the ropes, an old guy that knows he's not playing, to help coach up Bryce Young, in addition to whatever offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and other guys you bring in. Okay? Bryce Young, Stroud, AR-15, Will Levis. My order too, Luis. Good order. JJ Watt's D-line coach sounds much better. Man, I'd be shocked again if JJ ends up coaching. Just had a kid, probably going to have another one here, I would think. Has dedicated basically his entire life to nonstop commitment to football. And the coaches put in as many hours, if not more, at the building than the players do. You don't get to see your family near as much if you're a coach versus if you're a player. One of the most exciting things about DeMeco is that he's young enough he's hiring old guys like Cully and Lovie Smith. They'll play the work. Hey, young guys hire good staffs too, okay? Let's talk a little bit about that staff, okay? Let's talk a little bit about that staff. There's about 5 names on the 49ers coaching staff page that are pretty interesting names. Now, I'm going to get to the one that I don't love right away, and then we'll get to some of the names that I like a little bit more. The name that's going to get connected to the Houston Texans, it makes sense. I understand it. I get it. I don't love this guy being a part of the coaching staff as the offensive coordinator. That's Anthony Lynn. If you remember the name Anthony Lynn was the former head coach of the Chargers. Before that, he was in Buffalo for a moment. He was the offensive coordinator for the Lions in 2021. And this past year, he was a part of the 49ers staff here in 2022. Anthony Lynn, the last time he was an offensive coordinator, he got fired at the end of the year, and he actually had play calling duties taken away from him in Detroit before the end of the year. Dan Campbell stripped him of play calling duties. So Anthony Lynn is not a super exciting guy to come in and be an offensive coordinator. Anthony Lynn's a great human being. He's an elite person. When you read about Anthony Lynn's story, you hear him talk about it, some of the things he's gone through in life, some of the things he's experienced in life. That's an elite human being. I would love Anthony Lynn to be in the building. I don't want Anthony Lynn to be the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. Let me go ahead and kick a name off the list. Clay Kubiak. Clay Kubiak is the assistant quarterbacks coach for the 49ers. This is the first year Clay Kubiak has coached offense, coached defense the past 2 years. Clay Kubiak's not going to be the offensive coordinator of the Texans. Although, I will say this, he could absolutely find himself on the Houston Texans staff if DeMeco likes him enough. Chris Forrester is the offensive line coach and run game coordinator for the 49ers. Forrester's an old guy. Forrester's been around the block. He's been an offensive coordinator once in his career, mostly been an offensive line coach. It'd be a little shocking to have Forrester end up as the offensive coordinator for the Texans, just because he's primarily been an offensive line coach most of his career. And if he was a really good coordinator that one year, he probably would have kept the title and probably not bounced around a little bit. Bobby Slowick, okay, young guy. Bobby Slowick is somebody that is really interesting. And Slowick's been around the NFL for about 10 years now. Got to start in Washington on the defensive side of the football and coached defense initially before he flipped over to offense with the 49ers. Young guy, 35 years old, I believe, and is an interesting name to keep an eye on if DeMeco's bringing somebody from San Francisco. Bobby Slowick, Slowik. So Slowick is a name to keep in mind. People have talked about Brian Johnson as an offensive coordinator. You know, swing big, man. Swing big. Interview some of these top offensive coordinator names. Think about some of these top offensive coordinator names for what you might want, what you might need. You know, money, you can money whip some of these guys. You can write a big fat check and make some of these guys think about Houston. You don't have to know the offensive coordinator as a head coach to hire him. You just have to think that he can coach up your offense and get along with it. And I would think DeMeco is going to be a pretty open mind when it comes to the offensive coordinator spot and when it comes to picking an offensive coordinator. So I'm excited to see what that staff starts to look like. I don't know what he's going to do from a defensive coordinator standpoint. I don't know if DeMeco is going to call plays. My guess is he's not going to call plays, and he'll have a defensive coordinator actually call the plays. So my guess is not DeMeco calling plays. Or is DeMeco calling? Is DeMeco not calling plays? But we'll see how that one goes a little bit more. Forrester as running back coach. It would be a little bit of a downgrade for him. He's the assistant head coach. If you wanted Anthony Lynn to be the assistant head coach or the running backs coach, I think that would be an interesting one. That would be an interesting one to think about. Nathan, of course we keep Mills. I don't think it's totally for sure, but it's not a bad arm to hit it. Hey, you know what you need? Multiple quarterbacks. The 49ers just showed us that. John, Cody fires me up. Man, y'all fire me up, man. We got over 200 people watching this thing, talking in the comment section. Hey, y'all be nice to each other in the comment section too, all right? I don't have time to police this and kick people out and stuff like that, so hey, y'all be nice over there. Have some fun. Arthur Reyes, hoping DeMeco brings some players with him too. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have some guys he's familiar with. I think there's some defensive linemen they're going to hit free agency. I don't believe Charles Minahu would consider coming back to Houston, but one of the rotational defensive linemen, a guy by the name of Kerry Hyder, is a guy that I'd keep an eye on for the Texans maybe bringing in. He's had some success in San Francisco. That coaching staff sort of revitalized his career. So should be pretty interesting to see that. The lead, DeMeco Ryans, OC Bobby Slowick, and DC for sure be Chris Couric. Look, yeah, maybe, certainly some names that have been connected to DeMeco. I gave you guys my dream offensive coordinator the other day. I'll reset it for you if you haven't heard this, if you haven't heard this name pop up before. I want Cliff Kingsbury to be the offensive coordinator for DeMeco Ryans. And here's why I want Cliff Kingsbury. Failed head coach twice. Cliff Kingsbury is not a head coach. He's not head coach material. Can't do it. Okay, he's showcased at college, showcased at the NFL level. Cliff Kingsbury knows offense. Probably one of the best 100 offensive minds in the world when it comes to offense. And he can coach his ass off when it comes to offense. Plus, here's some additional positives to Cliff Kingsbury knows offense. Here's some additional positives to Kingsbury if he's on the staff. Familiar with mistakes that first-time NFL head coaches will make. Hey, DeMeco, I did this when I was a head coach. Don't make this mistake that I made. Hey, DeMeco, I did this wrong when I was a head coach. Don't make this mistake. Head coach experience, both failure and a little bit of success. Kingsbury had some success there in Arizona. Not as much, obviously, because he's not there anymore. But familiarity with mistakes, familiarity with success as well from Cliff Kingsbury. That's one of the bonuses. And Cliff Kingsbury knows how to coach undersized quarterbacks in the NFL. He was Kyler Murray's coach. Kyler's undersized. Bryce Young's undersized. So Kingsbury's got some familiarity with undersized quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, he coached Johnny Manziel in college. Johnny was an undersized NFL quarterback. Man, a lot to like about Cliff Kingsbury. Now, can you pry him away from hanging out for a year and getting paid to do nothing? It'll be tough. That's the dream candidate. That's the dream candidate. We finally gonna get rid of Kirksey. I got a hunch that DeMeco Ryans is not going to have very much fun watching Christian Kirksey film. Not going to have very much fun. That's something DeMeco's got to do, man. He's got to get in here, find out how he feels about all these players, find out about how he feels about the players that are on the team and that he and Nick Caserio need to make decisions on. DeMeco's got to put together a book on these guys, got to scout these guys, got to pick Nick Caserio's brain, the other guys in the building's brain on what these players bring to the table. Nathan, as far as getting Fields, Stu said Young or Fields, he meant Young or Stroud. He misspoke. Yeah, I meant Young or Stroud, not Young or Fields. Sorry. I don't believe the Bears are trading Fields. And if they do, it's going to be chaos in the draft. Yeah, I think Nathan's right. I think I misspoke. I meant Young or Stroud at 2. I prefer Young, but we'll see. Who's going to be our Bosa? Great question. Don't know. May not get him this year. May not have a Bosa. All right? May not have a Bosa for – that guy's rare. That guy's special. You got to be really bad, and you got to get it at the right time to be Bosa or to get a Bosa, either a Joey or a Nick, okay? It's not easy to find those guys. DeMeco's going to probably spend a little bit on free agency and bring in a pass rusher of note. And then you got to hope that you hit on some of these other picks. Maybe a guy at 12. Maybe the Clemson defensive end, Miles Murphy, drops to you at 12. That's a guy that you could think about. Brian Brzee is a guy that is an interior pass rusher and defensive tackle from Clemson as well. That's a guy that maybe you could do something with at 12. Maybe it's a late first-round pick. But, yeah, you got to add some pass rushers to this thing. Are people cooling on Steichen? Him and Denver could get Russ back on track. I'm interested to see exactly what Arizona and Indianapolis and Denver do here now because they're the only 3 teams left. I believe Indianapolis is going to take another swing at Steichen, going to talk to him. Looks like Gannon's going to stay put. So that's a big positive for the Eagles in the long term from their defense. I guess Gannon will try to take another bite of the apple next offseason. If you were Caserio, who'd you pick at the second pick? I'd pick Bryce Young. I'd pick Bryce Young, and I would have a easy time running the card up there. I get the size concerns. I understand why people are worried about his size. I really do. I understand why you might be worried about it, but I'm not going to have that be why I would shy away from Bryce Young. The accuracy is very good. The decision-making is good. He doesn't take big hits. He has fantastic pocket mobility. He'll use his legs when they turn into or when he needs to turn them into a weapon. And there's a lot to like about Bryce Young. Stroud's nice. I like Bryce a little bit more. Anthony asks, are there any pass rushers that can fall in the second round that you would love to be, Cody? I'd love to be all these guys because they're all in way better shape than I am, and they're all way more athletic and about to be filthy, stinking rich. Okay? I know what you mean, though. This kid out of Kansas State, Felix Anaduke Uzoma is a really interesting one. one of the motors for Kansas State. That's a guy that could be a second round, early part of the second round type guy. That's a guy that could be in the latter part of the first round. You may not get a shot at him. Nolan Smith from Georgia, one of their edge rushers, is a guy that I would look at. Here's a fun and interesting name. And this guy's going to be one of the weirder prospects to go through in the offseason. It's a guy who played at Army, and his name is Andre Carter II. This guy is really big. He's 6'7". He's not as heavy, despite being that tall, but he's a guy that in mock drafts a year ago, end of 2022 draft, thinking about 2023, he was thought to be a first rounder. And they've made the exception, even though he played at Army, he's going to be able to go be an NFL player and get drafted and play in the NFL. He's got the potential to test really well. The film's not going to look that great because he was the only super defensive player of note on Army's defense. But remember that name throughout the draft process. It's going to be really interesting. And Andre Carter II out of Army and what he brings to the table is going to be really interesting. Plus, I think in this top of the second round, I wonder if they will be looking for a linebacker to pair with Harris and to help that front seven. So guys like Drew Sanders, the linebacker from Arkansas, or maybe Noah Sewell, who's Penei Sewell's brother, maybe those guys at the top of the second round are something to think about from that standpoint. Jigsaw Kills 453. Big fan. Cody questions. DeMeco Ryans picks Bryce Young or CJ Stroud for the draft. You think we should stick with CJ Stroud or Bryce Young? Your thoughts? I'm a young guy. If you get Stroud, I'd like to pair him with a wide receiver. I'm less worried about getting a wide receiver in the first round if you get Young. So if it's Stroud, I want Stroud wide receiver. Maybe his teammate, Jackson Smith and Jigba, would be a good pairing. So I'd say Stroud wide receiver, whereas I'd go Young defensive player if there's a guy there that you really like. I believe Stroud needs talent right now to continue his evolution and to get to the next level, whereas Young could make do for a time with some of these guys from a offensive standpoint. Caleb, shout out from NYC. This is how I get my local news. Caleb, appreciate you for tuning in. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. We're having some fun here talking about it. Hey, if you haven't subscribed, I would love to subscribe down below. That helps out a ton with what we do around here. It helps out a ton with getting more people, getting more eyeballs on this thing and getting the show out there and having some more fun and all those great stuff. So I'd love to subscribe down below and a thumbs up on this video as well if you guys indeed would be willing to do so. Bobby Slowick seems to be a name connected with DeMeco for his OC spot. Yeah, Slowick could be on the staff in a non-OC capacity too, which is he's an interesting name. And again, unique candidate because he started on defense. He was a defensive coach before he coached offense. Harris will shine this year. Hopefully y'all know where DeMeco went to college. Yeah, he's a Bama boy. Roll Tide. DeMeco got himself a few Tide players on this staff. I got a hunch there might be a Tide player or two added via the draft as well. We know Caserio loves his SEC stuff. Fred Warner, who is the all-world linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, gave a ton of credit to DeMeco Ryans. Now, Ryans coached linebackers before he was the defensive coordinator. And Kyle Shanahan talked about how DeMeco showed up and immediately they basically were like, yeah, you're coaching linebackers. 6 months into the job, they knew he's going to be the linebackers coach. Warner talked glowingly about DeMeco Ryans and how important DeMeco had been to his career and to his evolution as a player, and Warner is an absolute monster. Christian Harris ain't that guy, but if Christian Harris can build on what the good stuff he did last year, man, DeMeco seems like the type of guy that could get Christian Harris to take a big step here in that upcoming year. Jason asks, how about Eric Bieniemy as an OC? I believe Bieniemy is going to have a lot of opportunities to be an OC, including sticking around Kansas City. I don't believe he'll be connected to the Texans. I'm also not totally sold on Bieniemy. Just based on who takes care of business in Kansas City. Andy calls the plays for the big ones. Bieniemy called the plays for Kansas City when they were here and faced the Texans. So he kind of got like a little trial run. It's not the worst name in the world. I just don't know if they're going to be in on Eric Bieniemy. Is there a possibility with the head coach, with DeMeco's the head coach, to early pick someone like Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and use our 12th pick or move back up for the quarterback? Yes, I suppose that exists as a potential outcome. The thing about that is, I hope they went into this process telling coaches they have to pick a quarterback. This organization desperately needs a quarterback. You need to get the quarterback tied to the coach and let that guy coach him up as soon as possible. But damn, it would be interesting if they went defensive player at number 2 overall. I really do believe they needed to go with the quarterback and then fill out the rest with the rest of those picks. 11 other picks plus more what you get from the Cooks trade. I saw somebody mention that in the comments. I really believe you got to go quarterback with that number 2 spot. And I wonder if that was a prerequisite for the coach that they were going to hire. The Gremlin. I'll be excited when I'm watching the press conference. Till then, fingers crossed. Hey, ain't a done deal till it's a done deal. I've been there before. I'd rather not be enemy. Doesn't call plays. Need someone with play calling experience. He's called plays some, but he does not regularly call the plays in Kansas City. Actually love keeping Pep on staff. They decided not to do if they decided to do that. Now as an OC, but as a QB coach, I would say there's a very slim chance of that being the case. Very slim chance of that being the case. Man, I'm like 30 minutes behind on the comments. We got the diet sodas. Stu talks about diet soda on the radio if y'all listen. Cherry vanilla Coke Zero. Very good. Very good. Stu, your thoughts on root beer? Don't drink it often. When I want it. And even root beer zero is pretty good. It's one of the interesting zeros. Bruh, catch up, Cody. Man, okay. All right. I'm going to go new comments and we'll work our way back. Sorry. Any players targeting free agency? I like front 7 players more than I like front 7 players in free agency more than I like secondary and wide receivers and stuff like that. I like linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, and stuff like that. So I'd lean that way. I want Young, I think, can break that small frame mold similar to Breeze. Sure hope so. Young's going to be interesting to watch at the combine because the rumor is he's going to be over 200 pounds, and that may put a lot of people's minds at ease. They bring that West Coast style here. I do believe DeMeco will run the Shanahan-Kubiak system. The Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak. I do believe he will run that system. Please don't trade up to 1. Just keep our picks. And unless you feel like you have to get Bryce Young, I'm kind of with you. How much there's a risk of the Bears trading the first pick? I mean, there's a significant risk. They need a lot more. They need a lot more than what just one player can offer them. Won't be smart if the Texans get at the number 1 pick. They need to stay where they at. Man, I would love to tell you it's absolutely going to be stick and pick for the Bears and then stick and pick for the Texans. I sure hope that's the case because that would save a lot of headache. A lot of headache. The camera quality has gotten much better. No, I just got prettier. No, I don't think so. I've got the camera on the laptop. It works. I've got another one that's as good. I can screw around with a 2 camera setup, but y'all don't need me looking at you here and then looking at you there and looking at you here. I mean, y'all don't need that. I do like to think I got a little bit prettier though. A couple things about Cooks. Sadly, I see Cooks staying. How likely is it Cooks gets moved? I believe there's a 0% chance Brandon Cooks is on the Texans next year. 0. I really don't believe he's going to be on the Texans. I don't know what they're going to get for him, but I don't believe he's going to be on the Texans. Anthony Weaver, a possibility for DC or D-line coach. I wonder if Weaver's on his own path to try to find his way through coaching. Respected guy, previously was here and didn't have a great team to work with. So I don't think it ended really well. Guys typically don't revisit. Don't revisit stuff that hadn't worked out. And the Texans hire Steve Wilkes as the DC. I don't know what DeMeco's going to do at DC, man. I don't know if he wants a guy that's just going to handle it for him. I don't know if he wants a guy he can coach up. That's an interesting aspect of it. Obviously, Lovey didn't have a DC, called the plays himself. Again, I don't believe DeMeco is going to call the plays himself. He might. I just don't think that's exactly what you totally want. What you totally want from the head coach. But a lot of offensive guys call the plays, so it's not the worst thing in the world if the defensive guys call the plays. They will hire Ryans and Watt will retire under him. That's what's going on. Man, I've thought about JJ maybe coming back. I think the Cardinals would have a lot to say about that, but it's not the craziest idea. It's not the craziest idea. Roe Bezel. Brzee alone would take the Texans' last-ranked rush defense up 10 spots alone. He's a freak, dude. He's going to test really well. He's a fun watch at Clemson. Really good story. Coming back from some injuries, had some personal tragedy. His sister tragically passed away. The team kind of rallied around him. Seems like a just all-American dude. Really good story with Brzee. Kiper didn't have him in the first round in his mock draft. I don't know if that was a Kiper oversight. I don't know if Kiper knows something we don't know. I'll be interested to watch Brzee. He's a guy that the combine can be very kind to. Free agent targets. I'll get to names later in the offseason. Again, I lean front seven on the defense and offensive lineman. I'd love a free agent center so you don't use a draft pick on it and maybe draft a center that can grow into it. So I'd love a free agent center. This is good. Anthony Ragston Jr. Finally not so much zone. Yes. Derek Stingley in man coverage, locking some cats up. Give it to me. Tyree Wilson would be a good pick. Ooh, he went to a great university, a fantastic university. They call it the Harvard of the Plains, West Texas Yale. So we know he's super smart. Texas Tech University. He's probably going between when the Texans pick. He's probably going between picks 3 and 11. But if he snuck down to 12, run the card up there. Going to be fun watch for him in the fun watch for Tyree Wilson in the draft process. Excuse me. Tyree Wilson going to be a fun watch in the draft process. Cody, if we got Bryce or CJ, then go heavy on defense SC players from Bama, Georgia, LSU, build a powerhouse. Music to my ears. Have been this excited about the Texans while finally seeing some real positive news. Ryans brings a level of excitement to the Texans we haven't seen in a while. Yes, he does. Oh, look, Jake Asman's in here. Hey, don't be fighting with people in here, Jake. Maybe put you in timeout now, Mr. Asman. Jake does a great job putting clips up from our show. If you like the Jets, Jake does a great job covering the Jets. He's on YouTube. Throw him a subscribe. He does a real good job. And he's on a little program called The Wheelhouse with yours truly and another guy named Brad Kellner and our producer, Andrew Carlson, that you can listen to for Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on ESPN 97.5, ESPN 97.5 app, and all that fantastic stuff. All right, I'm catching up. So I was way behind, and then I caught back up here, and now I'm behind a little bit more. So here's some more comments here. Oh, what are we doing, Grim Jim? What are we doing? That's Cleveland now, Grim Jim. That's Cleveland. That's why I like Jay, Cody, and laundry. They call it like they see it. I can't tell you how long my mom has called laundry locker. It tickles me every time. That's what she calls him. Landry does a great job. Subscribe to his podcast as well. He was live earlier today talking about DeMeco. I'll pop on his channel sometimes. Landry go jump on some stuff, do some stuff with me. So it's we got some good Texans stuff coming up here on the YouTube. All right, couple more comments, then we'll call it a night. It is Monday night. We don't want to have too much fun on a Monday. That blends into a Tuesday. Okay, we don't have too much fun on a Monday. Bears aren't picking at 1. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you're probably right. If I had to bet on it, the Chicago Bears do not make the number 1 overall pick. Will not make the number 1 overall pick. What kind of defense really run? 3-4, 4-3 hybrid, probably 4-3 base. But you're in nickel, you're in dime, you're in multi-linebacker sets so often. So your base is not super important. Jason, 11 picks in the draft outside the ball should most of the picks go to. Best player each time. They don't have a whole bunch of just absolute studs on this team, so just try to draft the best player. Is he practically hired to been asleep most of the day? Yes. Yes, he is. See, Jeffrey is the type of a guy that these late night YouTubes are for. Jeffrey probably works overnight. Jeffrey been asleep all day getting ready to go to work at night. Next thing you know, he's like, hold on, they hiring DeMeco? Yeah, it's really close. Can we get rid of Justin Britt? I believe Justin Britt's retired. Now, I know he's not officially retired, but he ain't playing football for the Texans again. Just want the Texans to get dogs. Oh, you and me both, man. You and me both. Jake is the GOAT. Oh, man, I don't know about the GOAT. I like him a lot. I don't know if he's the GOAT. He's pretty good. I've known Jake for a while, man. I've known Jake before he even really kind of figured out what he was doing with this radio thing, and he's turned into a fantastic radio host. He's credible on YouTube, and he's part of the reason I have this channel. He showed me all the ropes and stuff, man, so I'll always be thankful for the Jake. Hey, that's his squad, man. That's his squad. He takes care of the Texans conversation, too. I'll always be thankful for Jake showing me the ropes on YouTube and some of the fun stuff we've been into in our career. 3 years ago today, Jake Asman and myself interviewed Martha Stewart. Yeah, that's right. Martha Stewart. We talked about spatchcocking turkeys and smashing potatoes. And then whatever Martha was pimping, Tostitos or something, a commercial with Snoop Dogg. 3 years ago today, Jake and I interviewed Martha Stewart at Radio Row at the Super Bowl. All right. Jake's the man. Coaching staff predictions. You know, there's a lot of connection. I don't think he has to be connected to anybody. I don't think he has to be absolutely connected to anybody to hire them. You know, you can hire guys that you haven't worked with before. It's not the end of the world if you got a little lack of familiarity with them. Okay? I'm going to let Michael have the last word here. Oh, I lied. Smelly balls. Saw a picture of Bryce next to Kyler Murray. He looks short. How tall is he actually? We'll find out. Martha, did you get stock tips? No, we didn't ask her about prison or insider trading. I want to talk to her about cooking anyway. Okay? I'll talk to her about cooking. I got to hear more about this Martha Stewart story. All right, hold on. If y'all will sit here and listen to me type for a second, I'll go find the interview and I'll throw it in the comments here. Yeah, here we go. I found the Martha Stewart interview. I'll put it in the comments if y'all want to listen to Martha Stewart. Jake and I 3 years ago interviewed Martha Stewart. You can check it out in the comments. I think y'all can click this. I think in the comment section. Can you click it in the comment section? Yeah, you can. Okay, I had to click over to the regular YouTube. Yeah, the Martha Stewart interview is great. I mean, we were one of 4 radio stations that interviewed her. And there were some big names that didn't get Martha Stewart. She took pictures with us, nobody else, except the people that interviewed her. And there were people flocking to her. She's a superstar. And she took pictures with us. She was very nice. And then she was boop, 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 off to her other one. It's a really fun interview. Give it a listen. There's a great baked potato hack in the interview that it is worth listening to just for that baked potato hack. Andrew says, guns up. Appreciate you. I promised somebody the last words here, and I'll get to it. Michael, in the back of my mind, I don't feel safe saying DeMeco's our coach till it's official. I feel you. Things are changing at NRG Stadium. We won't have feelings like this for much longer if DeMeco's the guy that we believe DeMeco is, and they get the right quarterback and they put a bunch of good players around him. We'll stop having these feelings, and we'll start feeling like we're the class of the AFC South again, like this organization it used to be. Okay? All right. Martha Stewart interviews in the comments. It's worth your time. I think it's about 10, 15 minutes. Maybe not even that long. It's 9 minutes. Okay. 9 minutes. I think it's worth your time. We had a lot of fun talking to Martha, and she got a great baked potato hack in there. We have a lot of fun talking Texans on this channel. Okay. I appreciate y'all so much. Again, one more time, if you could, subscribe for me. If you haven't subscribed there, down below. Okay, you can find it down below there in the subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button. That helps more people see the video. More subscriptions, more thumbs up, comments, helps people see the video. If you know somebody that would like this stuff, please send it to them. Send it to them. Just throw it into the group text or put it in their DMs or whatever. Put it on your Facebook. I appreciate everybody. I really do. These are so much fun. Okay, we don't have the restrictions of radio where we got to stop at a certain time and this and that. And I know everybody's here to talk about the Texans. We have so many more of these. We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to try to find us really fun draft guests to put on the channel. We're going to have some real big-time guests. We're going to have some fun. We're going to just chop it up. We might have, okay, and I know Jake does this. He'll have to show me how to do it. We might have a bunch of just you guys get in on the camera. You guys call in, do a little Q&A, and ask me anything type thing. We'll do some stuff like that. Super Bowl predictions. You got to listen to the radio show if you want the Super Bowl predictions. But again, at times over 200 people in here, clearly over 100 for most of the stream. Thank y'all so much. We have so much fun. We are going to have a lot of fun on this channel, so don't miss out. Subscribe down below so you'll know what's coming. We'll do a lot of this late night stuff. I'm a night owl. I love staying up late. So subscribe down below, and we'll get to some plenty of Texans conversation here on the YouTube over the course of the next few months and really years. I don't plan to go anywhere. We're talking Texans for the rest of our lives here on this YouTube. This will be some fun stuff as well. Once again, subscribe at Cody_Stutes on Twitter. If you want to hit the Instagram, you can. I ain't got that much fun stuff on the Instagram, but you never know when I might get a wild hair and the you-know-what and just start putting the angles and the filters, okay? You never know when I might have some fun stuff on the Instagram. Thank you all again. These are so much fun. I have a blast. We have lots of ideas. We have lots of time. We'll talk to DeMeco's staff. We'll talk free agents. We'll talk draft picks. We'll talk all the fun stuff. Let's see if I can remember the little catchphrase that I finished up with last time. Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk soon.